moon is still drying. I'm just going to watch that, see how it's drying, but we can go ahead and start on our most distant mountain. And you can see here how we're kind of going to go about it. We're going to do it darker down here so that our bushes will really stand out, and then as it gets to the top we'll do it much lighter as the moon is shining on it. So of course everything starts the same way. I'm going to wet this area and I just give it a little rub, kind of like I do my moon up here where the mountain meets the sky here. And I'm painting around these bushes. So in this area you have to be a little careful. It's not a huge deal if you don't get it perfect. It's such a small area too that it's not quite as, I don't want to say important, but it's not as a big a deal if you miss some areas, like with your background here, this big open area of our sky. And you definitely don't want any puddles in this area. You just want to make sure that you've got it fairly wet enough for paint to flow. So I've got that area wet, and I'm going to go right into my green gold here. I'm going to get a little watery mix of that going. This is a very, very strong and intense color that will explode. It will, if I were to put it down, like just drop it right into the middle here, it literally would explode into this whole mountainside. So you don't need a lot of this. You get a lot of bang for your buck. And because I want this area here to be darker, I'm going to pull over some of this phthalo turquoise. You could also use phthalo blue. Really not a big difference. I'm going to add the two together, and this kind of gives us a really cool looking green. And I'm just going to start to lay some of that color in. Go ahead and paint around my bushes here. I'm going to go into a little darker color, this phthalo blue, and just start dotting in some darker color. You could even add some mauve. Really trying to get this nice and dark. Because remember, it does dry lighter. And you can see how I'm just kind of using the tip of my brush, and I'm not really painting. I just keep dotting and dotting and dotting. So be careful of splashing water. I'm terrible about doing that. Okay, so once we get this as dark as we need it to be, and you can see even over here on my plate, do you see how much that green gold takes over the world? It's taking over my phthalo turquoise. I'm going to drop down to a smaller brush because now we're going to use just the straight intense green gold, so I don't want to have a lot of it on my brush. Just grabbing a little with a little water, and I'm just going to start to dot it right on the edges of where that darker is meeting my lighter up here. Just adding some lighter color and letting those two colors kind of combine. You can start pulling some up into your mountaintop. Rinse off really well. Now I'm going to come in and do the same thing with my mauve, just because a lot of my work is really about color variation, and it looks like a lot of things are happening on this mountain, but really it's just a bunch of color. So once you get it to this point, then I will go back to gravity. So I'm gonna start to pull it up to this top here. I'm gonna grab just the tiniest amount of mauve on my brush and just start to tickle it to the top of the mountain here. If things really start running, do you see how there's not this great push of water coming, it's just slightly moving up. If it starts to move too quickly, you've probably gotten too much water here, and remember your thirsty brush, just swoop some out. So you can wait for it to dry a little bit and take some of the water content out. Gonna grab just a little more of this green gold. Just add a little more to that mountaintop. And I might even dot some down into these darker areas just to give it a little visual interest happening down here. And same thing with my mauve. Gonna add a little bit down here. And there you have it. That is our first mountain happening back there. So I'm gonna let this one dry and then we'll start on this one.